development, sociology, and business management. Currently, I am a facilitator with CCPU Training Fund and a certified CPR instructor. Now I will be passing it off to Terry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry Rivers. I've been a childcare provider going on 20 years now this August. My business is Shoes Off Childcare that's located in Long Beach, California, of course. My degree is in early childhood education. I'm a CCPU Local 99 contract action team member, a speaker, a mistress of ceremony of members of the U.S. Congress, invitee to the White House for the presidential signing of the Child Care Proclamation. I'm also a president of NACCP, which is National Association of Child Care Providers. I'm a creator of Schools of Childcare, which is an app for childcare providers. And I'm a mother of three beautiful girls. And I'm going to pass it back to Felicia.
Okay, thank you guys. Now we are going to start discussing contracts for our family businesses. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to do a small activity. The activity is a memory activity, and we're going to ask, share a story about the time you had a bad experience with a contract, and tell us what did you learn. We're going to take maybe two or three people can raise their hand, and we'll let you speak.
No takers yet.
No takers? Okay, so since we don't have any takers, I'm going to ask my co-facilitators if we can share some memories. Oh, Sierra, who raised her hand, I was just about to ask. We can have Sierra share one of her memories, and maybe me and Terry can also share. We don't have any hands by the name. Go ahead, Sierra.
Yeah, so this is regarding NAP policy. I did not have it in my handbook previously. And I have a child. Now she's already gone. But when she was in my program, like she was three towards the age like almost 3 years old. She stopped like it take a long, long time for her to fall asleep. And so then I talked to the family. I said, well, if she's not sleeping, she's going up and down, moving so much, making so much noise, disturbing the other children. We have to, let her like give her permission until 2:15. My nap is from 1 to 3. So I said by 2:15, that's the maximum. Of course, we would judge the situation. If the child is really tired, we still encourage. But if she still refuses to sleep, we would allow her to get up. And the family just get furious, like, oh, where's your policy? Where? I'm like, so that really got me. And then started me thinking if everything is in my handbook and she couldn't say anything like that. So that's a big lesson for me. Anybody else has some other experience, please, yeah, feel free to share.
Yeah, I would like to share my bad experience. One of the things that usually the contract is very good to have on hand because sometimes parents don't follow your policies. And my experience was, for example, my time schedule. And this is a subsidized family. And the family was, it was the hours they qualify for the program for my daycare is
Mhm.
from certain time to certain time, right? But the parents sometimes they think because they helping them to pay, they think they have the right to decide what hours um, they think they're entitled to change their hours.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened,
Mhm.
mine it was from 6:30 to 5. And basically well, the thing is that they were having hard time picking the children up on time, and and basically they think because they brought their children's a different type in the morning. Like I put myself as an example. Like I put as an example, like they will bring their children at 7 o'clock, and the schedules are from 6:32 to 5. And then they think because they brought their children at 7, they think they can pick up their children
30
like at
minutes.
6 o'clock after.
Mhm.
Yeah, and basically the mom was kind of really how can I say it? Said no, I'm qualified for these hours, and you have to. My kids can be here at this time because I brought it at 6:30, and basically I showed them that my contract, and basically that was my bad experience. Parents, they think you don't have a contract, and they sign the initial my contract, and they sign it, and I have to bring my contract to show them, because sometimes parents, they don't have the time, they don't put time to read the contract. They just only sign it, and that's it. They don't know what is in the contract.
Yeah. That was a good example.
Okay. We have 2 more hands up. We can take 2 more short answers and then we're gonna move on. And if everybody can save their questions to the end, that'll be great. So we're gonna have Elma and then I'm gonna go to the next person.
Hola, buenas tardes.
I had a bad experience due to the bad way the contract and policies were written. I think we have to have a clear and precise explanation of what is requested from the provider towards the parents.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I don't want to say her name right, Elvira. Did I say right? Okay, Elvira. I was just making sure I said it right. Go ahead.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was thinking along the same lines with Sandra. I had very similar to subsidized parents. So this has been my career for the last 30 years. And so I did have a mentor that got me started in the business. And so she advised me to put always everything in the contract. But one of the things I really want to make find out with this workshop that I'm doing today is to put it am I doing it right, whether it's in the policy or it's in the contract? Because I really have it in both. But which one should it be in? Because what I did is when I sit down and I talk to the parents is that I do show them after when the parent notification comes in, and let's say they're given or granted 11 hours, I tell them that in my contract, it's stated there that I grant them 9 hours per day and that those hours are not rolled over to the following day.
Right.
Since they're not rolled over, anything more than that, they're obligated to pay. And then there's a statement there that says that whatever those subsidized programs don't pay or don't cover, that they're obligated to pay. And of course, I get their full signature on it. And then just on that particular spot, that's not including the finalizing of the contract. So I have it on the policy part, just as you would any contract, say a home contract or a car contract where you initial and you sign. I kind of like followed that outline. So that's what I've done. So anything that has to do with, because subsidized programs have the tendency of giving them many hours, 12 hours. Well, that's great. But if you're only allotting them, say 9 hours or 9.5 hours, then who's going to cover the rest? So that's what I want. When I sit with my parents, I do advise them that. I do let them know that this is what I'm going to allow you to have in my daycare. Anything past that is what you're going to pay or you're obligated to cover if they don't cover. I just want to make sure, where does it go to, the policy or the contract or both?
We will be touching on that. So yeah, you're gonna find out today.
And thank you so much for your 30 years of service as a
Oh,
child care provider. It's appreciated. And like Terry said, we will be touching on that. And that was perfect for our intro to contracts. Okay, so what is a contract? A contract is a written or spoken agreement between two parties or more. A contract helps you establish a professional relationship. It set legal, clear expectations and protects you legally. A contract is a legally binding agreement. Therefore, it should only include policies focused on time and money. For example, in my contract, it's broke down any additional hours outside of the agreed upon hours is an additional fee, similar to Elvira, how she said, because that affects my schedule, which it affects my money. I don't get paid for those extra hours, so it belongs in a contract. Next slide, please. Why a contract? A legal binding contract will protect you against lost wages. A contract minimizes financial risk. A contract legitimizes you as a professional by setting clear boundaries between you and your clients. And finally, it gives all parties the ability to terminate the relationship between yourself and the other parties without legal ramifications. Next slide, please. 5 must of a contract. Number 1, name and the signature of all parties. Number 2, name and date of birth of each child. Number 3, the agreed upon schedule of care. Number 4, the terms of payment. Number 5, termination procedures. While your contract may contain more, these 5 terms must be included in your contract. The reason you're entering into the contract with someone has to be listed. For family child care providers, our reason is the child. Make sure you list the name of the child and their date of birth. That way, everyone is clear as to who they're coming into the agreement for. Each child should have their own contract. Contracts require identifying information. Who is legally entering this contract has to be written into the document. By doing so, you acknowledge that you're assuming responsibility for the following and enforcing the contract. We highly recommend that both parents sign the contract, regardless of custody agreements or relationship statuses. It is important to have 2 separate signed contracts by both parents in the event of divorce, co-parenting, joint custody, or any other type of guardianship arrangements. This ensures that both parents are financially responsible for their child or children's tuition. For example, if 2 parents decide to separate, you want to make sure that you're covered. So by adding that in there, making sure they both have their own separate contracts, if you ever have to take legal actions or present anything, you can say, well, you agreed to this, so you can enforce the contract. Also, when you're dealing with just guardianship in general, it doesn't have to be 2 parents divorcing. It can be any type of relationship. The 2 people whoever agreed upon paying you. This helps us reduce the possibility of providers getting caught up in any relationship issues as well, and you won't be a part of any disagreements. Next slide, please. Key terms. What are the key terms you should be sure to include in your contract? Next slide, please. Now I'll be passing off to Terry.
Hi, everyone. This is Terry again. So here's an overview of what you should include in your child care contract. Terms of payment, co-payment, family fees, overtime fees, change in fees, deposit policy, bounce check policy, late payment fees, child care closures, provider vacation holidays, so your personal days and the holidays, your right to waive, and absences. There's another one. If you offer transportation, that has to do with money. So it should be added to your contract if you charge parents. If you don't charge, then you don't need to add it to your contract. You could add it to your handbook. Next slide, please. Terms of payment. By setting the terms of when your payment will be received, you are establishing and setting a stable income for yourself. This will help you plan for upcoming bills or events. Establish your payments weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. We recommend advance payments for your service. Think of your rent, gym membership. These bills need to be paid in advance. My parents have to pay Friday before service is rendered. So if they're coming on Monday, they need to pay the Friday before. This is a good time to establish that your families are paying for their spot and not based on their attendance. This avoids conflicts with the families who may refuse to pay you for the absence. So the child is you're being paid for the child by enrollment, not attendance. Next slide, please. Co-payment, family fees. Family fees are established by the subsidized agency, whereas co-payment is established by the family child care providers. Just like Elvira had mentioned, all of those hours, I had a parent that had 80 hours a week. I'm like, 80 hours? Like, is this even possible? Like, who's doing this? It's like, what? So before you provide care for a subsidized client, you should check and see if your rates are higher than a subsidized rate. If so, the subsidized client will have to pay a co-payment. Your contract should state that the subsidized client is responsible for the difference that the fee, which does not meet your rate, which they're responsible for whatever overage that they have. Your contract should also state that if the subsidized agency does not cover your entire rate for any reason, that they are responsible for it. And you need to check with your local resource and referral agency with the payments, because sometimes the parents can move from provider to provider without even paying you before they switch childcare. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sierra.
Thank you, Terry. This is Sierra speaking. I'm going to talk about overtime hours, which refers to the amount families will be charged when children stay outside of the agreed upon hours. It can be charged by minute block, or half an hour. Why should we charge overtime fee? Well, first of all, it can motivate families to respect your schedule. Mm-hmm. Another important reason is that if the students overstay, it may put you in violation of your licensed capacity. For my program, I charge $15 for the first 5 minutes. Then it is $5 per minute after that. Although in some cases, you might want to consider lowering it down or even waive it if it's something you have pre-arranged, or something that is out of your client's control, such as a road closure or a major accident. You are the boss. You can determine your own overtime rates. Next slide, please. Now let's move on to change in fees. Like overtime fees, communicating change in fees with clients can also be daunting. However, with the inflation, rising cost of living, rising cost of food, staffing, prices of everything keep going up. It is fair for us to pass the increased cost to our clients. Therefore, adding a regular rate increase schedule in your contract can help with these conversations. You could include language such as, the weekly rate will go up 3 to 5% each year on the anniversary of signing this contract. Or the weekly or monthly rate will go up $15 or $20 each year in January. In my program, monthly tuition goes up $20 each year in August. That's the beginning of our school year. Just so you know, most subsidy agencies are paying providers based on the RMR, regional market rate from 2018, 7 years ago, which are definitely not reflecting the true cost of our business. Next slide, please. Now we're going to look into deposit and the registration policy. In my program, I ask for a deposit that equals 2 weeks tuition when a family enrolls their child. You want to include a deposit in your contract because, for one, it covers you if a family leaves without notice. 2, it gives you time to fill the vacancy. I also ask for a one-time $400 registration fee. I know it's kind of pretty high. That's because I do have to spend a great deal of time and effort during the enrollment process. I charge this fee once, but I know some other providers, they charge a registration fee which might be much smaller annually. Again, you're the boss, you can decide. Next slide, please. Now let's move on to insufficient funds policy. Usually, insufficient funds occur when a check bounces back. Then the bank will charge a fee for not having sufficient funds. It is only fair for us to pass any fees associated with the returned checks on to your clients. We recommend that you contact your bank to see how much they would charge and add another $10 to $15 on top of that, because you need to spend time to deal with the bounced checks. If it continues to be a problem, you may want to consider putting them in a cash-only payment schedule. I'm very glad that nowadays in my program, no clients use checks. Most of them pay by Zelle or direct deposit. Venmo or Cash Apps are some other options you might consider. Now I'm going to pass off to Felicia.
Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, you have it already. Okay. Late payment policy. Late payment policy is an incentive for your client to pay you on time. Most providers charge $5 to $10 per day. I include weekends because I work on the weekends, and that it should be included. It establishes professionalism, enforces right away to prevent more tardy payments. You can withhold services until payment is made. You can require clients to pay extra each week until late fees are paid in full. You establish the terms. This is your business. In my contract, the late fee is an extra $50. If it is not paid by Friday by 5 p.m., I add an extra $10 per day. And services, if the late fee is not paid by the Monday they're supposed to come, service is not provided. Next slide, please. Facility closures. It is responsible to expect payment for holidays. In this time of mental health crisis and overload, please take time off to refresh and rejuvenate. Many providers set closure dates coinciding with the local school district. You can define holidays as you like. Any of the 10 federal holidays plus other days you celebrate, such as Good Friday, Ramadan, July 4th, Juneteenth, and many more. Please take in consideration that 25 hours per week is considered full-time. So if you miss a day or two, more than likely you are covered for your full-time rate for the week. You can also give yourself paid vacations, professional development days, sick days, personal days, and even take your birthday off. Any days you would like to take off. Other professionals have paid days off. It can and should be the same for family child care providers. You will be able to provide the best care and education if you are well rested. Check if your subsidy programs will pay for days off. Charge for holidays helps you to maintain a regular set income. Next slide, please. Attendance. Your contract should state that your rates are based on enrollment, not on attendance. For example, if a child is out sick, then you still need to be compensated. It's just like a sick day. If you're at a job and you're off sick, you still get compensated for not coming, just like the parents would. Also, if you have construction workers as clients, even though they're off when the weather doesn't permit them to work, remember, their child is holding a spot. So we still need to be paid for that spot, because while their child is not there, we can't fill a spot just because they're not working because they already paid for it. And as long as your client is paying tuition, again, we're not allowed to fill the spot. The subsidy agencies require us to notify them if a child misses 3 days in a row. Next slide, please. Remember, this is your business. Therefore, you have the right to waive any terms written in your contract. It is best to consider and enforce all terms written within your contract. Right to waive protects you in case you choose not to enforce all your terms all the time. For example, a parent pays 1 day late and you decide to allow them to not have to pay the late fee. The next week, the parent pays late again. Now you enforce your fee. The parent may argue with you that the contract is no longer valid, but it is, because you have the right to waive. It's your business. You let them get away with the 1 late fee and gave consideration to them. So now they need to pay. So basically, the right to waive protects us. To prevent any arguments from parents, you can include this following language above the signature line in your contract. A failure to enforce one or more terms of the contract does not waive the provider's right to enforce any other terms of the contract. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? And we're going to send it back to Terry.
Okay, you guys, right now is 6:45. We're going to take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we'll start on our policy handbook. So be back at 6:55. Hello, everyone. We're back. So, a policy handbook. Can I get the next slide, please? What is a policy handbook? A policy handbook is how you identify, establish, and communicate the rules for your educational program to the families, the legal guardians, and your staff. In other words, your policy handbook is a document that contains information about you, your business, and your program, including the policies, the procedures of your program, and what will not. And this document will not be upheld in court as opposed to your contract that deals with time and money. And the handbook tends to be longer than the contract. There's no one size fit all. Your business is unique. Your business is different. Please don't download another handbook off the internet. Say if it's mentioning stairs and your daycare or your childcare doesn't have stairs. So you don't want to do that. For example, say a policy regarding outdoor play can read, we feel that outdoor play is vital to each child. Please do not ask for your child to stay inside, as all staff are not here for one-on-one care. Or you could add something in your policy like, if it was raining yesterday, the kids will be limited to outside play to prevent wet bottoms. This is your business, and make your handbook according to your business. Next slide, please. What should you have? Why should you have a policy handbook? A policy handbook or a policy manual or a parent handbook, as many have referred, it allows you to communicate and set clear expectations for your families and any other person who may come to support you and help you in your program. Whenever policies and procedures aren't documented, there's room for individuals to establish their own rules and or misunderstandings. A policy handbook ensures that everyone is on the same page and establish a formal agreement, adhering all parties to its policies. Moreover, your policy handbook tells the parents your story. In your policy handbook, you could write your bio, you could put in your educational background, you could also add your child care experience. You could add the background of your staff, let them know how long they've been with you. You could let them know their educational background. You also should include your philosophies, your mission statement, your liability insurance, and any other non-discriminatory clause, to name some, because this is your business. Implementing these measures not only strengthens your professionalism, but it also serves as a clear indicator to families of your high quality, the high quality of your program. Remember, in your handbook, refrain from talking about time and money. Time and money are contracts. It does not go in your handbook. Next slide, please. Here is 11 musts of a handbook. And I know you guys, we told you to get a pen and a paper out, but since there's 11, if you're on a phone, screenshot it. If you're on your computer, take your phone out and just take a picture of it. So then you could just easily have these. So when you're doing your handbook, you could just reference 1 through 11. So number 1, provider's bio. Introduce yourself, share your story, tell them about yourself. So then they could share with family members and say, no, this person has a background of this, their experience for this long. They love talking about where their child attends. Number 2, your program philosophy. Explain how your program operates and tell them about your approach. So mine is Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it talks about the basic needs in 5 steps. You should really look it up. It's really good. It just explains how a child needs to be sure to be well rested, well fed, pamper change or go to the bathroom before they could move up to even learning. So if a child is tired, let them sleep. So then when they get up, now they can learn. If a child is hungry, feed them. So then they can learn and do whatever it is that you want them to do. But without the first basic needs, how can you move forward with the child? They're going to be grumpy. They're going to be irritable. So that's the approach I use. That's my philosophy in my business. Number 3, sick or medication policy. Explain, what do you do when a child becomes sick? Are they supposed to stay home? Are you administering medicine? And remember, if you're administering medicine, they need to fill out a license form. I believe it's license 9221 to get the parents' consent. Number 4, potty training. So outline your procedures and your approach to potty training. For instance, one of mine is we will start potty training, but as soon as that baby comes in and has on a diaper, we will stop potty training because now the parents are being counterproductive. Also, if the child messes their clothes up twice in that day, we will put the child on a pamper. Number 5 is diapers. So some people have a diaper policy. Explain how your diapering is handled. Include the changing procedures and your supplies. Number 6 is your nap time policy. Describe when and how naps are scheduled and any other related procedures. As I explained earlier, if a child is tired, I will let them sleep. Number 7 is your discipline policy. Clarify your approach to discipline and a behavior management. What I do is I sit red chairs out. So it's a red chair on the inside and it's a red chair on the outside for outside play. If a child acts up, I just have them sit in the red chair. And if they're old enough, then I'll have them explain to me a different approach to where they have to sit in a red chair. And if they're young, I'll just give them an option on saying, we don't do that. We're sharing. Let's not be mean. We don't hit our friends. And then I'll give them time to get up. Number 8, house rules. List rules and expectation for behaviors and safety within your program space. Number 9, daily schedule. Provide a breakdown of your daily routine, including the activities and their meal times. This should also be posted on the board for everyone that come in. The parents want to see this as well. So have it in your handbook, but also have it close to your license as well. So if they were to walk in, it's up there by the menu. They could see the menu and they could see the daily schedule on what the kids are going to be doing that day. Number 10 is COVID or infectious disease policies. We're still going through the sicknesses. There's still a strand going around right now. So how are you handling it? Are you cleaning every 3 months? What are your protocols on handling contagious diseases, illnesses, and things of that matter? Number 11 is your right to waive. Also include this in your handbook, just as you're going to include it in your contract. Your right to waive, this is a must in all contracts, because if the term is outlined and are not followed through, then they will look at your contract or your handbook as being invalid. So remember the verbiage of your right to waive. A failure to enforce one or more terms of this contract does not waive the provider's right to enforce any other terms of this contract. Please remember that your policy handbook outlines your family child care program, your business information, and your client's responsibilities. The handbook is a perfect place to identify and incorporate these features that make your program unique and a benefit to the customers and to your child, to the children you serve. Next slide, please. And I'm going to pass it on to Felicia.
Communicating contracts and handbooks. Communicating your contract and handbook is very important and a must be addressed. excuse me. The time to address it is during the child's registration. You should address it during annual reviews. The contract must be signed by all parties, and for the handbook, we recommend to ask the parents or legal guardian to initial every page in the handbook or next to each statement. This ensures that it was clearly understood. Ensure that you review and read each section of your policy of your program with the families, and when you're updating the handbook, please provide them with a copy. And it is highly recommended that all this happens in person. For example, I usually ask a parent when they come for registration that I need at least 30 minutes to an hour of their time, and generally it's during usually it's during the time that we're getting the child acclimated with the program. So we'll have them come and do their sit down with other children and see how they do. It's the meet and greet time. So then we're allowed that time to get the paperwork done. So I know that they clearly understand what is expected of my program and where we need to make sure we both agree upon. Now I will be passing it back to Sierra.
Okay, all of you amazing providers, you have made it through. Thank you so much for staying with us through this long webinar. I hope that you have learned something. And now we are ready for your questions. Please raise your hand. You can either like a physical hand if you don't know how to do it virtually, or you could do it virtually, like choose React and choose that should be at the bottom, just above React, raise your hand. So you raise your hand, we will call on you in order. So let's see. I think, is there already some questions in the chat? Do we have any already? We can start with those. If people still need some time to formulate their questions. Okay, Millie, do you?
Yes, I wanted to read a question that a provider had. So this provider asked, the subsidy programs are not paying holidays this year. So how can we work with the parents on this change that the program just made?
First of all, the subsidy program, I think they have like 10 days federal holidays. All the program I have come across, they do pay 10 holidays. If they do not pay for you, as we previously stated, you have to make sure that the family has to make the copay, because you cannot sacrifice your own business just because the subsidy programs do not pay. And you have to ask it, but you have to clearly communicate with the family in advance. So in your contract, you should have a term, the payment terms is saying if the subsidized program cannot meet your full rate, it is the family's responsibility to cover the difference of the cost. I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions? Because if you don't have, Denise, I think, Denise?
Good evening, everyone. I also wanted to add to that question. 25 hours now is full time. So even if there was one unpaid holiday during the week, as long as there are 25 hours, you will still get your full rate. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Denise, for adding that. Millie, do you have any other questions?
That was the only question through the chat that I received.
Okay, if I can give you guys still more time to think about it. Meanwhile, if you don't have questions for us, we have some questions for you. So maybe you can think about these questions. First, are there any terms or conditions we did not cover in this webinar that you use in your contract or policy handbook? You can share with us because we might not cover everything. So we would love to hear if anybody has anything that we did not cover. Or if you don't have any of those, I would like to ask, what are your major takeaways from this workshop? So something like, oh, aha moment. You have something like, oh, that's an idea. We would love to hear your feedback. Now I see there is Bessie. I think, Bessie, you can unmute.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I
Okay.
think I
Yes.
didn't hear anything about how do you say, disaster plan. If there is like how we had COVID-19, we should put something in our contract that if we have something like that, maybe the parents can cover the fees and stuff when we're watching the kids. Because if we have to close for a long time, and there is how they call, I don't know, we have to close a long time and they have to come back and we're not making money. How are we going to pay our bills? So how's the business going to go on? Because there's a fee that they should cover till we open back again. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bessie, for your question. I think my coworker Felicia, would you like to take on that question, please?
I think that's a great question. Um, I, I, I believe that disaster plan is something like COVID, something we don't know that's going to happen. It happens. I think that's a great idea that you added there. And how you word it is very important because you're trying to make sure you get paid. Remember, the subsidy programs usually pay us up to 2 weeks after a kid is missing. So if there's a disaster and you're unable to still provide care in your home, that's where the conversation really starts. Um, but I think it is a good idea to add it in to at least 2 weeks of payment, just as if you add in the fee for you need the 2 week notice um, to make sure that you can financially stay stable. I don't know if any other co-facilitators wanted to add anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Bessie, as my coworker Felicia said, it's a great idea. You have to be very clear upfront if during the closure how long you are going to charge. In my contract, I also depending on the length, also the family situation, right? Because if the family also lost job, it cannot pay you if you ask them to. It's kind of not ideal. So there's a lot of situation, but you have to put in your contract very clearly. We just meant 2 weeks paying for us, even longer, but we would offer some alternative, such as an online program. So then I will still charge them. So maybe you can reduce, like give a discount, but then you're the boss, you need to decide. You could provide an alternative and you still charge them. I hope that helps.
Please go ahead.
Hi. So when COVID happened, the resource and referral agencies had set up that any child that was enrolled in your program, you got paid for during the duration of COVID. And that was because our bargaining team had negotiated that into our contracts. Now, consider this. Even if you have in your contract that the parent has to pay you if there is an infectious disease, they could easily unenroll. So I think the 2-week grace period it's about as much as you can possibly have with that, Bessie. However, the resource and referral agencies, as well, we can't predict the future, but they covered us before, so more than likely that will happen again. But again, that was something that was negotiated in our contract with the state through the bargaining team. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. I have that in my contract, but I'm talking about maybe private pay. Because what I did with my private pay is I told them, okay, because this is happening, they can't bring their kid. I'm not going to charge them the full price, but I charge them maybe $50 a week or $30 a week for me to save their spot. Because if I don't do that and I don't have them coming in, and sometimes online, I do online stuff too, and that helps. But if you don't do that, that means your space is empty. Whilst you still have bills to pay. So with the private pay, there should be something that at least will cover that part when they are not there.
My only hesitation with that, again, you can do 2 weeks of it, but at that point, if the private pay families are not working themselves, then they're not going to continue to pay you if they aren't working. They will just unenroll their children. Do you understand what I'm saying? So at that point, I think maybe 2 weeks might be the maximum that you might be able to get from a private pay family.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I know everybody is working that long day, huh? Everybody's quiet in this group. So we don't have any in the chat, right? Any question in the chat anymore, Melly? How about my questions? Have you guys thought about it? Like if any terms that we did not cover? Or do you feel there is some takeaways from this training you would like to share? We would really appreciate that too. You can either just put your question in the chat or you can raise your hand.
I have a provider who wrote in the chat that a major takeaway from this training for her was adding 5% to her rate each year.
That's great. I'm glad because everything is increasing. You do have the right to increase your rates. Thank you, Melly. Thank you, whoever the provider is. Is that another? Oh, Terry. Yes, please.
Okay, I also want to add, you know how us as providers, our subsidized children, that money does not cover transportation. So even if you're not charging for transportation, you can still add, well, if I go pick up your child and you didn't inform me that your child was absent, then that's $5 just for going outside of my way because of gas. So you could still add something to that extent of taking care of gas. Maybe you don't want to charge $25 a week or $50 a week for transportation, but you could still add, well, I'm going to charge you for not letting me know that your child was absent that day when I went to go pick your child up.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to have every base covered. So when things come up, you have something in written. Okay. To see if we do not have any questions, you can still add more because we still have another training coming up. Melly, would you like to take over?
Yes, thank you. Before I jump into that training, I just want to share our contact information on this slide. You can reach us at our email, businesstrainings@cputrainingfund.org, or visit our website if you need to contact us for any questions or concerns that you may have. And so moving forward, I just want to thank Sierra, Felicia, and Terry for this wonderful training on contracts. I've attended a couple of these trainings, but I'm always learning something new, and I enjoy hearing everyone's unique experiences as you guys are all childcare providers. You guys know the ins and outs of this field. All right, so now moving forward, included in this webinar is an informational presentation that we want to share with you all about knowing your rights. Let me double check to make sure. Okay. I want to start off by saying that we are not lawyers or legal consultants. We are here to provide some helpful information on your rights when interacting with law enforcement. So if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please email us at businesstrainings@ccputrainingfund.org, and we will direct them to our legal team. We don't want to provide any answers that may be incorrect or not up to date. So again, we strongly advise you to email any questions that you may have regarding this presentation, and we can help direct them to the right people. All right, and in this training, you will learn about what you need to know and what to do when encountering immigration officers, the police, or the FBI in different places. You also learn about things for you and the families that you work with to remember in any situation and how to protect yourself and others in your workplace during a raid. And throughout this training, I will be sharing some information and links in the chat. And everything that I share in the chat, you are welcome to share it with the families that you work with. And for your protection, please do not share any personal information regarding immigration status during this presentation. Okay, I want to start off saying that you all have rights regardless of your immigration status. During this presentation, we will be referring to your Know Your Rights card often. This card is intended to help you remember and express your rights during a raid or other interaction with the police, immigration officers, or the FBI. So I'll go ahead and share in the chat some links that you can access these Know Your Rights card online. So there they are. All right, moving on. What you need to know if immigration officers or the police come to the home. To enter a home, immigration officers or the police need either a valid warrant signed by a judge or magistrate or permission from the occupant. Without a valid warrant signed by a judge, the occupant does not have to open the door. Opening the door could mean giving the officers permission to enter the home. A warrant does not mean that the occupant has to answer questions as well. If immigration officers or the police are questioning the occupant and he or she wishes to remain silent, they should say out loud, "I wish to remain silent," or show the officials the Know Your Rights card. And in the case when immigration officers or the police comes to the home, you should not open the door and always ask for identification. Officers may try to trick, frighten, or intimidate you to get into your house, but you can always look through a window to see their identification, and do not be caught off guard and open the door. That's the very important thing. You also want to ask the officials if they have a warrant. If the officials do not have a warrant, they do not have the right to enter your home. You can ask them to leave. If the officials have a warrant, you have a right to see it. You want to ask the officers to slide the warrant under the door or put it up to your window. Remember, you do not want to open the door. You want to read the warrant carefully. There are different types of warrants. What to do will depend on what type of warrant it is. Each warrant must have certain information. If it doesn't contain the information that is required, that means it's not valid. So that also means the officers do not have the authority to enter your home. And please keep in mind that warrants may look different depending on your state or location. And as we go through this training, we'll go through some examples of different types of warrants. And again, remember what it is. What's important is that the warrant contains the information necessary to make it valid. So we'll go ahead and look at the first type of warrant, a valid search warrant. So a valid search warrant must be signed by a judge, a justice of the peace, or a magistrate. It must state the address of the home to be searched. It must also state in detail the area to be searched. In some cases, search warrants may be many pages long, describing locations to be searched. If the officer does not have a valid warrant, you can say, "This is not a valid warrant. You may not enter my home. Please leave." If the officer has a valid warrant, you must allow them to enter your home. When they enter your home, you can say, "I do not consent to you searching my home." This should limit where they are allowed to search. And you also want to observe where the officers search. Observe if they search in areas that they do not have permission to search in the warrant. And you want to repeat that you do not consent to the search. If an officer takes any of your property, you always want to ask for a receipt. Next warrant we're going to look at is a valid arrest warrant. So in this warrant, it must also be signed by a judge, justice of the peace, or magistrate. It must state the name of the person to be arrested. It must also describe the person to be arrested. If the officer does not have a valid warrant, again, you can say, this is not a valid warrant. You may not enter my home. Please leave." If the officer does have a valid arrest warrant and the person named in the warrant is home, that person should go outside to meet the officer. Close the door behind them. If the person named in the warrant is not home, whoever is home at the time can tell the officer that the person is not there and do not open the door. A warrant of removal or deportation, which is also an immigration warrant, it doesn't give the officer the right to enter your home. Again, you can say, "You do not have the right to enter my home with this warrant. Please leave." So in this slide, you can see here's an example of a judicial warrant. Where the arrows are pointing, that is where you want to make sure that it is signed by a judge, a justice of peace, justice of the peace, or magistrate. In this slide, this is an example of an administrative warrant. Again, you want to make sure that it is signed. Now, if immigration officers or the police come to your workplace, here's what you would need to know. To enter a workplace, immigration officers or the police need either a valid warrant or the permission of the employer. As the employer, never instruct workers to run either before or during an enforcement action. If workers run, it may lead to the worker being arrested or detained. A warrant also does not mean that you have to answer questions. If immigration officers or the police are questioning you and you wish to remain silent, say out loud that you wish to remain silent or show the officials your Know Your Rights card. As an employer, you want to also have an emergency plan with your coworkers. You can use a workplace checklist to help you prepare, which we'll go over in the next slide. And as of today, we are talking generally about workplaces, but in the future, we will also be sharing more information specific to family childcare workplaces. So in a workplace checklist, you want to make sure to have an emergency plan in place with any workers in your workplace in the event of a raid. It's to help build a plan to address issues in the event of a raid to help protect the workers and families. If you are the employer, you should speak with the officers. In the event that you are not the employer and the employer is not present, or if your employer has given permission to the officers to enter, have the person you have chosen to speak with have the person you have chosen to speak with officers in a raid ask for identification. Remember, the officers may try to trick, intimidate, or frighten you. The person speaking to the officers should read the warrant carefully and determine if it is valid. If officers enter your workplace, you have the right to remain silent. Do not provide any information about your immigration status, where you were born, or how or when you came to the United States. Do not show any documents from your home country. Say out loud that you wish to remain silent, or show the officer your Know Your Rights card. If the officer searches you or detains you, remain calm and do not fight back. If you are searched, you can say, "I do not consent to this search." So what you need to know in the situation where you're at the Immigration Detention Center. So you have the right to call your consulate. You have the right to remain silent. Being detained does not mean you have to answer any questions. You have the right to speak to an attorney or accredited representative. You or a family member must contact the attorney or accredited representative. This will not be provided for you automatically. You also have the right to refuse to sign anything before speaking with your attorney or accredited representative. When you speak to an attorney or accredited representative, it is essential that you tell them about any prior arrest or criminal history in addition to your immigration information. A person at risk of deportation should never visit a detention center or voluntarily interact with immigration officers. So what you want to do in this situation, you want to request a phone call so that you can call your emergency contact. This could be a family member, an attorney, an accredited representative, or a religious or community organization. You also want to call your consulate for assistance. Do not provide any information to anyone other than your attorney or accredited representative about your immigration status, where you were born, how and when you came to the United States, or your criminal background. Say out loud, again, if you wish to remain silent, or show your Know Your Rights card. Anything you say can be used against you. You also have the right to refuse to sign anything before speaking with your attorney. If you are being asked to sign something, you say, "I will not sign anything until I speak with my attorney." Ask questions if you do not understand what you are being asked to sign. You also want to request a copy of your notice to appear and all other documents for your case. A notice to appear includes information about the charges against you and information about when you must appear in court. You want to request to be released on a bond. This means that you are requesting to be released until your hearing. Only a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident can post bond for you. If you are told that you do not qualify, you can request a bond hearing with an immigration judge. You can do this at a hearing or make a request in writing to the immigration judge, and your request should include your name, your alien registration number, if applicable, and a request for a bond redetermination hearing as soon as possible. And last but not least, make sure to request your own copy of all the documents that your attorney or accredited representative submits to the judge as part of your case. Now I will put further resources in the chat for some for numbers that you can call for rapid response support and a family preparedness plan. All the resources, again, from today can be shared with families that you work with or personal relationships that you may have with anybody. This is meant to be resources for you to utilize. And we will continue developing these resources, especially resources specific to family child care. So I'll go ahead and link it right now. And again, if you have any questions, I highly encourage you to email us, as I am not a legal consultant or attorney, so I do not want to answer any questions and provide false information. We will direct your questions to our legal team. So here, there in the chat, I've included links to the rapid response support and other resources that you can use. And that concludes our presentation for the Know Your Rights. And I want to thank you guys all again for joining us tonight. Again, Felicia, Terry, and Sierra did an amazing job. And I hope this presentation was also very helpful and informational for you all. One last thing I do have is I have a evaluation survey link that I would like to put in the chat for you all to please take some time to fill it out. We greatly appreciate your feedback. This is to help us provide better and more trainings for you all. We are here today because we are here for you, to support every one of you. And we want to hear from you and get some feedback so that we can improve our trainings.
Melly, just to clarify, so that survey, we expecting them to finish now, or?
No, so it doesn't have to be completed now. There's no like time frame for it really. We just put it in the chat. The participants, we want them to complete it, and I will give you guys. We have plenty of time, so we can stay on for a couple good more minutes. If anybody has any questions related to the contracts training, now that there's been some time, feel free to ask them. Our facilitators are here to help answer any questions that you may have. So please feel free to take this time to ask questions related to the contracts training and fill out the evaluation survey.
I do have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Basically, it's nothing regarding this information, but I would like to see if CCPU can as well to provide a training in contracts, but with when we trying to get an employee to have a right contract for them as well too, to be protected as us as a provider and as well for employees.
Do you mean the contract, like employment contract?
Correct.
So you would like to see a sample or something?
No. What I'm saying is if they can provide like a training or a workshop, how to create a contract for an employer.
Oh, like in terms of staffing, right? Like employment.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
I see. We will
Thank you,
definitely
Sandra.
take it down, and yeah, and we'll see what we can do. And also, Sandra, I think you were the first one to shared earlier, you and Elvira. I hope through this training, did we answer your questions? Because earlier you seem to have some, like, the schedule, the subsidized program, and parents expect long hours. Did that all clarified?
Yes, thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
I did attend to this kind of training as well too here in Contra Costa, maybe like a couple of years ago, and it was a great training who provides CCPU about these contracts. But I would, like I said before, I would like to for them if they can provide a training as well too for us to have that right information in contracts for new employees, new employers.
Yeah, that's very important in terms of hiring, right? You want to make sure both yourself and employees are protected. We will definitely take this down and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We still have some time, as Melanie mentioned. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that in regards to my question earlier, um, that's to be put in since it has to do with money, it would be in contract.
Yes.
Okay, great. I caught on. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
That is correct. A contract deals with time and money. Handbook policy, on the other hand, anything does not, have to do with time and money you put in your handbook. Otherwise, your contract will be too long. So, anybody else? I understand everybody must be tired after a long day and this training. So, or we did a great job that everything is clear that you guys don't have any more questions. But we have the contact information. If in the future, if you think about something, you still have more questions, always feel free to send us an email. We'll really appreciate that. So Melly, does that mean by this point, if the providers wish to leave, they could?
Yes, before we end tonight's webinar, I just wanted to add that sometime next week, everyone who attended this webinar will receive an email with some follow-up resources, which includes these Know Your Rights resources and some resources related to the contracts training. This webinar was recorded, so that will also be included in that email. So if you miss something or you have some questions, you can always refer back to those videos as well.
Well, once again, thank you, all of you amazing providers. We really appreciate you sitting through this webinar. We wish you all the best. And as this point, if you have things to do, you want to leave, please feel free. But keep in mind that the survey, we would highly appreciate if you could complete, provide us with feedback. Because as we said, this is for providers, by providers. We want to do our best to serve you, to help you in every way we can. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope you guys
Thank you,
have a
everyone.
great night.
Thank you and good night.